Your top military advisors warned against withdrawing on this timeline. They wanted you to keep about 2,500 troops.
No, they didn't. It was split. That wasn't true. That wasn't true.
They didn't tell you that they wanted troops to stay?
No, not in terms of whether we were going to get out in a time frame, all troops. They didn't argue against that.
So no one told, your military advisors did not tell you, no, we should just keep 2,500 troops. It's been a stable situation for the last several years. We can do that. We can continue to do that.
No, no one said that to me that I can recall.
But we've all seen the pictures. We've seen those hundreds of people packed into a C-17. We've seen Afghans falling.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
What did you think when you first saw those pictures?
What I thought was we have to gain control of this. We have to move this more quickly. We have to move in a way in which we can take control of that airport. And we did.
All right, let's discuss what we've just learned, these new parts of this interview done by George Stephanopoulos. Shamila, to you first. What stands out to you?
Well, I think it's clear the president is digging in. He feels very certain about his decision. He's known for a long time that there are no good options. And so what I'm reading in between the lines is that, the United States is telling the world, we are going to be pursuing an extremely minimalist foreign policy approach to Afghanistan. And we can expect that approach to extend to the rest of the region in the future. But in the weeks and days to come, I think we can expect them to continue to just focus on the security and safety of American citizens.
David?
Well, one thing that's stunning to me is the missed empathy moment, which is a rare thing in a Joe Biden interview. He doesn't often miss moments to express empathy. And when George Stephanopoulos talks to him about the images that we've seen of the packed military aircraft or Afghans running on the runway, despite his sort of being defensive there in a moment, he also then just said, well, I thought we have to get our arms around this and get this right. There was no sort of classic Joe Biden moment of empathizing with that experience of that person hanging onto a plane on the runway, which normally Joe Biden does.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised as well, and I have been throughout really all of this, just given that he touted himself as the foreign policy president. He had decades of experience. It is something, especially when it comes to Afghanistan, this is something that his aides cite all the time. His refusal to acknowledge that this has not gone the way they expected or has gone in a positive manner. This drawdown has not been smooth. It has not been orderly, as he had been assuring people since April that it would be, is kind of surprising to me, especially if you look back to his town hall that he did with Don Lemon in July, when he said, I'm going to level with the American people. And if I make a mistake, I will be straight with you and I will tell you. And if I think I did the right thing, I'll tell you too. And when you talk to people inside this White House privately, no one thinks this has gone the way that they wanted it to. Now, they will defend how they've responded and how they've handled it and how things can be surprising. But his saying there that this wasn't a failure and saying that there is no way this could have happened without complete chaos is really surprising to me. That he said he would do something. He said he would acknowledge mistakes. He's not acknowledging a mistake.
There are a couple things in there that jumped out at me as actually pieces of new information or new statements from President Biden. Number one, while he has, in a way, blamed the situation left to him by former President Trump for the decisions that he made, he just told George that he would have pulled all U.S. troops out anyway, or worked to do it anyway. That's pretty interesting, given that in his previous statements, including the paper statements, he made clear that he felt he was forced into part of this by decisions from the Trump administration. The other thing he said there, which I think is going to raise a lot of questions, is the idea that he can't recall ever being told by military leaders that the United States should leave in a contingent of 2,500 or small group of troops. Now, I don't know if he's splitting hairs there because, it's not often people tell a president of the United States, you're wrong, you should do exactly this. But based on our reporting, it certainly seems there are senior members of the military who expressed that the United States might be in a more advantageous position if they left in several thousand troops there. And just finally, what I see here is a president who's hung up on the decision itself, who is convinced he made the right decision to do it, to withdraw U.S. troops, but still can't seem to hear the questions about what is happening on the ground now, and it's what's happening now where lives hang in the balance. David.
I think your third point, John, is tied to your first point. The reason I think he said that he would still have moved forward as president, irrespective of the Trump policy, pulling all troops out, is because of how committed he was to this notion of ending America's longest war, of bringing all the troops home, of not handing this on to yet a fifth American president to deal with. That is where he is most comfortable. And quite frankly, it's where he's aligned with the American people on this as well. So that's part of why I think you saw him say that part about irrespective of the Trump policy, he was going to pull everything out. I think maybe the timeline could have been perhaps a little different. And John, I think your second point is so critical because I think we heard Joe Biden say two different things. He said, to his recollection, nobody told him, nobody from his military advisors told him, Mr. President, you should keep 2,500 troops in there. But just moments before that, he said the advice was split. Yeah. Well, then we need to know what is the split, because it would seem that maybe in that split of advice he got, somebody was telling him a different option than pulling everything out. So those two things didn't seem, even though they were within seconds of each other, to go quite together.
But can I just add, this is not a new Joe Biden. We have heard Joe Biden as senator and as vice president be critical about the war in Afghanistan. He had always wanted to get out. He had always wanted to focus purely on a counterterrorism mission. He was always looking at the military guidance with a certain amount of suspicion. And during my time at the White House, we had always anticipated for the possibility that once we left, we would have to characterize what was happening in the country as something that was domestic and up to the Afghan people to sort out, which I think intellectually is still accurate. Intellectually, we should withdraw. However, I take issue with the methodology and the mechanics of the withdrawal, which I think we can all agree on has been a failure.
Right. That's the White House and the president keep going back to why they are withdrawing, which I think we all get. We've all known for a long time this is his position. The questions that even Democrats in Congress have is over how this has happened. And in regards to what he said about the military, we reported back in April when he finalized this decision and he announced it, that there were top military officials who said they did believe that they should continue the presence a little bit longer. They did not think it should happen this quickly, this rapidly. One of those was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, who had advocated for this. And the White House even confirmed this at the time because they were asked, is this a decision where the president is overruling members, top brass at the Pentagon? And they said essentially that he asked for a non-sugar-coated viewpoint from his top aides on this. And so confirming essentially that there had been differing viewpoints over how this should proceed. And so we do know that that was a factor that played into all of this.
Yeah, in fact, of all the presidents who have presided over this war, he may be the first one who did fully overrule some of the military advice that he got. That is the sort of narrative coming out of this. Thank you so much. As we're trying to piece together so much at this critical moment, it's so wonderful to have your perspectives on this.